Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're talking about how we decide whether or not we're doing well enough. I make a metaphorical pyramid from coffee stirrers, and we don't really get to the bottom of whether or not Martin is in fact watching too much football. How to measure success.
Morning.
Morning. Oh, my voice has gone a bit crumbly.
You haven't spoken to anyone yet this morning, have you?
No, I haven't. Apart from the dog.
How are you doing then anyway? You've been out for your walk?
Yeah, been watching the cricket.
Yeah, that's disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really. Anyway, never mind that.
You don't want to talk about it, do you? I can see the hurt in your eyes.
It's disappointing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah. Well, we don't want to go on about that much, though, do we? Or too much at this moment.
Yeah, stop opening old wounds.
I'm sorry about that. Well,
yeah.
what I'll do is, do you want to crack straight on then?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. Well, I don't think I can't think of anything, any sort of spurious nonsense that I want to talk to you about this morning.
No, you look
Valentine's Day, isn't it?
It is Valentine's Day. Yeah, it is.
Is that what we're talking about?
No.
Oh.
Well, we could have done one, couldn't we, on that? But I forgot it was Valentine's Day. I only got 6 cards this year as well, which is a disgrace.
That's a total lie because it's Sunday and there's no deliveries.
Oh yeah, you saw through that ruse straight away, didn't you?
Anyway, 6 cards. It's a bit excessive to send 6 cards to yourself, isn't it? Did you try and disguise your handwriting in them?
Yeah, I wrote it with my left hand and sent them from different locations. It boosted my morale. Anyway, enough of that nonsense.
Yeah.
What do you know what we're going to talk about today?
No, tell me.
Well, it's about, my working title is How to Measure Success.
Is it about measuring success?
It is, yeah, good work, yeah. Well, I was watching. It seems I'm starting most of these episodes at the moment. It's with some sort of football-related incident, and it's unintentional, but it works in quite well. I was watching Football Focus.
Are you watching too much football?
Maybe,
Yeah.
but I like a bit of Football Focus, just a bit of a roundup. Anyway, on there they were. We'll come back to that if I'm watching too much, but it's not relevant right here. But they were interviewing a guy called Tam Smith.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's or not, but who for the last 30 years has run this football club. It's called Hutchison Vale FC. Mm-hmm. They're up in Edinburgh, and they've produced a phenomenal amount of professional footballers.
Yeah.
They're interviewing him in the in their hut, as it were. So this sort of hut, but the trophy cabinet sort of extended right along the wall. It was the clubhouse. It was just full of medals and cups and photographs, etc. And he then went on to read off a long list of names of boys that have been through the club and ended up playing professional footballer. Professional football.
Playing professional footballer.
Footballer, yeah.
Is that a video game?
It's better than FIFA or Pro Evo Soccer. Anyway, he read off this long list of names, and there was loads there I hadn't heard of. Obviously, had turned pro and stayed up in Scotland or whatever. But there's quite a number there that I recognise from the English game. And the interviewer was asking him what the secret was to the success up there, and the reply was quite interesting, which sparked my interest.
Yeah.
And he said it depends on how you define success. And he said that he was most proud of the fact that they took children off the streets and gave them a real interest and guidance, regardless of whether they became professional in the end or not. He said keeping the children away from social danger was his perception of success, and that the cups and the medals were a byproduct of what they did. And I thought that's a really nice sentiment. And he'd obviously been working there all those years voluntarily, and he'd produced all these fantastic results. But his view of the success, or his perception of success, was different from what other people from the outside looking in was. And so it made me think about how we measure success, because I remember, in the recovery community, it's quite an important issue, really. And I remember when I was first went into recovery with Kenwood Trust, and they told me, and I remember, I'd finished my three months rehab course, and they said, great, we can get paid now for that. we get the funding for that. Now you've completed what we set out to do, and it was deemed a success. And I thought 3 months is that a that's how they're getting paid by results, and that's how they measure their success. And the same happened. I went up to Kenwood House quite recently. I met the CEO lady up there, and she's talking about a success rate there. She said, we got over a 90% success rate. I thought, that's phenomenal, because we see nothing like that out on the streets of people coming into recovery and achieving a sustained length of recovery. And again, their success was measured by if they stayed the rehab course there, if they stayed there and didn't walk out. So effectively, if they stayed there, completed the 3 months, that was it. It was deemed a success. What happens after that was almost irrelevant. Although they tried to put things in place, and we have a link with them so we can speak to those people that are coming out. But it was tricky, because it seemed to me that it made me think about success, how I would deem that in recovery. And I couldn't really put a figure on it, but 3 months seemed quite short. I don't know what your feelings were on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit. It reminds me of one of the reasons why in the NHS there is such a reliance on sending people towards CBT for their therapy, because one of the advantages of CBT is that you can measure the outcomes. If you talk to people about changing their behaviour and you're constantly measuring the ways in which their emotions are changing, then you can look at someone after 3 months or 6 months and nominally measure to what extent they feel better.
Yeah.
But I think, as you're alluding to here, the problem is that we don't know how the story continues. Now, from a perspective of attracting funding, I kind of understand that you've got to measure it somehow, and you've got to decide how you're going to determine whether or not you're going to place money in this place or somewhere else. But it's only, I was going to say, it doesn't tell the whole story. It only tells a absolutely tiny fraction of the story, doesn't it?
It does. It's strange, because the new people coming into recovery, their 1 day sober is a massive success. Yeah. It's getting passed through 24 hours, where my last 24 hours is nothing like that. It's the same time period, but the perception is completely different, because I'm obviously way down the line. I'm still grateful for that 1 day. Don't get me wrong; it's still a success in my mind, but it's not on the same scale as someone newly coming in. And I mentioned on the Zoom meeting yesterday that what we're going to be discussing in this episode, because people often ask, what's up next, our regular listeners, and so trying to get a bit of a sneak preview before it comes out. But having said that, it's a great source of further information. So I'm not ruthlessly plundering their knowledge or their thoughts upon it, but it is genuinely quite a nice discussion. And Aaron, who's one of our avid listeners, he made a good point about those. He's known a number of people over the years, as I have too, that they may have been quite a long time sober. They could have many months or many years, but they aren't embracing the joys of recovery. They sort of got this, we call it the dry drunk syndrome, where they're angry still, they can't have a drink. Mm-hmm. So that although they've put down the drink, their success is different. They're not enjoying it, and so again, it's quite difficult to measure that, isn't it? Yeah.
So the point you're making, I think, is that the way that we see success is very much a personal thing.
Yeah.
We determine for ourselves what we mean when we say I'm successful in this.
Yeah, it is. It's the measurement of success. It's subjective, isn't it?
Well, it is subjective, but I also wonder if it's always worth thinking about things in terms of success. Do you think it's always useful to ask yourself, am I being successful? Because I think sometimes the problem with that is we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get to a certain level or do something to a certain standard or whatever it might be. And, going back to that, where we started, your story about the football club in Scotland, that it strikes me that that's a good illustration of how when we stop measuring what might be considered a traditional measure of success, i.e. trophies and, victories and so on, when we forget about that and we just do it for kind of some other reason, quite often those successes come along as a byproduct. So I think that probably happens in all areas of our lives when we are able to stop focusing so intently on the things we think of as being necessary to feel that we're successful. They're the times when we quite often are most successful.
Yeah, I agree. As the guy said, the cups and medals, as far as he was concerned, it was a spin-off of of his how he rated the success. And I suppose it's just thinking about it. When we go along to at the fellowship meetings, the AA and NA and CA, you get little chips, little coins that show you how far down the line you are. You can get one for a 24-hour period, for example, and again you can get one for for a year and 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. So, and they all have a different meaning, really. Although obviously the writing's different on there, but they have a different meaning to that person that's receiving them. And I think it's again, but it's some sort of measure, because I remember I've got a 4-month chip, and I remember carrying that in my hand and holding that. And taking it around with me wherever I went. It was always in my pocket, and I thought it's great. I felt really proud of that, And then you get a 6 month one or a year one. Doesn't seem to have quite the same allure. It's quite the same significance.
Isn't the point that you're making there the fact that whilst a 4-month chip might mean a lot to you, it might not mean anything to someone else. They might only see some sort of value in the 6-month chip or the 12-month chip, and someone else might not care about any of the chips.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think there's this kind of arbitrary application of what we feel is important generally for people to measure, but actually there is no kind of arbitrary standard. If it doesn't mean anything to you, measuring this or measuring that, then by definition, it's completely unimportant, isn't it?
It is. It's strange when you Google, how to measure success. It's almost exclusively taken up with, how to with businesses and how you measure success on a business scale. And it reminded me of our old corporate days. There's one or two relevant good ideas that I thought I saw in there, though. I had to sift through a lot of rubbish, as you can imagine. But one of the favourite points was a phrase came up, was compare yourself only to yourself, which is quite tricky to do, isn't it? Because we always have these outside indicators. We always look for other people and say, they're whether they're inspirational people or people that, some people enjoy looking down the pile, don't they, and see people worse off than themselves to make themselves feel better. So it is the measure is quite difficult, and it's individual.
Yeah, I think there is I can understand the purpose of that phrase, comparing yourself to yourself, but it wouldn't be enough on its own, would it? There is some benefit that we get from external comparison. I think the problem comes for us when we rely too heavily on it. If the majority of your good feeling about yourself has to come from you comparing yourself with other people and always feeling as if you measure up, then you've got a problem. But if you're reasonably self-reliant in terms of being able to look at yourself and, hold yourself to account, but also praise yourself when it's necessary, then actually a little bit of external comparison doesn't hurt, does it? There are certain things that we do in our lives and we think, well, let's look at, let's model ourselves on someone who clearly does this very well, is successful in whatever measurement we use. And I think that sometimes can help to pull us forward. I think it pushes us back when that's all we look at. And the other thing that pushes us back is when we compare ourselves with other people and we only look at people who we perceive as better than us. That's quite dangerous too.
Yeah, I think it's the quickest way to become unhappy, isn't it? If you're always looking around for someone who's got more money in the bank than you, or I've got a bigger business, or will drive a better car. It's nice to have ambition, to strive, but you're never going to get the pinnacle. You're never going to reach the top of that. You're always going to be discontented with life.
Yeah, it's like well, I mean, this podcast is a good example of that. If we were fixated on the number of people who downloaded it and the people who listened to it, and we were kind of constantly poring over the numbers, which, we don't do we? Then it would be easy for us to say, well, what's the point in us doing this? Because we're not getting, massive audience numbers. But my philosophy was something like this, or, my blog or anything like that, is if a handful of people are getting something from it and I enjoy doing it, that's success, isn't it?
I totally agree. I never ask you to what the figures are. I don't need to know. Yeah. It's nice to get individual feedback.
Yeah.
In fact, I just got to mention someone that comes on to our Zoom meetings. Now, I've only met this girl only on Zoom. Okay, I've never met her face to face. I've only seen her recovery on Zoom.
It is the best way to meet you, only on Zoom.
I think so. So. You haven't put up with anything else, have you? Just the visual impact is nasty enough. But I know I did tell her that I was going to mention on her on the podcast today, because she's become a real avid listener. Ronnie, her name is, and she was telling me that she'd started to listen to the podcast. Now she's gone back to day one as well and started listening to our podcast right from the start. Now this is episode 64 we're doing today, so it's quite a task she's undertaken. But it just reminded me of being, it's typical addict behaviour. I'd been the same. I'd have to have the full set of everything, as you know, and it did make me chuckle. She's a joy. She's come along, as I've only seen her. I've seen her over the last since March or April. We first started to do the meetings in lockdown. To see her blossom has been great.
That's right. Well, I hope she enjoys the back catalogue.
Well, yeah. I haven't listened to any of ours for now and again. I dip in because I need to reference back from time to time, but. There's a quote I want to just interject at this point.
Really?
It's only quite a short one, but I just wanted to have your thoughts on it before you start rolling your eyes to the ceiling, and raising your eyebrows. I know you're not in a good mood today, but I'm going to see how you compare, see how you get on. The quote goes like this: "Social comparison bias is a cognitive bias that explains that our judgments are often influenced by comparison to other people. A benchmark makes it easier to make a judgment, but it will not necessarily be a more accurate judgment." So which was going back to what you said earlier on, wasn't it? It backs up what you said. So so you can be quite pleased with this quote, because it's I researched it. It's down in my notes, and you'd already covered it. You'd brought it up. You thought
I have. I have. It's in fact, I think the first time we discussed that concept, we were in Pret a Manger. On one of our Wednesday morning coffee meetings.
Well,
and if you remember, I don't know if you remember, but I broke up some coffee stirrers and made a pyramid. Do you remember?
I did.
It wasn't a pyramid because it was 2D, so it was basically a triangle. But I asked you to use your imagination and imagine it as a pyramid.
In fact, I've probably got. I think I took a picture of that. I've got that somewhere. It's a number of years ago, but yes,
you did. And the conversation we had was about how. However good you are, so if you imagine a triangle or a pyramid and you think about however good you believe yourself to be at a certain thing, you can effectively plot yourself somewhere on that pyramid. And the nearer the top you are, the better you regard yourself at it. And the nearer the bottom, the worse you regard yourself. So if you kind of put yourself in the middle, the problem that people have is that wherever they plot themselves, they have a tendency to look above them and only consider the people who are better than them, which is what that quote's about. And if you do that, you lose all perspective. All you're ever doing is you're always placing yourself at the bottom of that pyramid and thinking about people who can do things better. And you're never giving it any context by considering how far you've come from where you were when you couldn't do it at all. Excellent.
I've dragged something quite interesting out of you there, quite inadvertently, which makes a real change. It's cheered me up. So what about this other quotation that I've got here?
Oh dear.
Right. It's from this sports coach chap. I don't know if it's a contentious quote or not. I just would like to know what your thoughts are. And he says, "Don't measure yourself by what you've accomplished, but rather by what you should have accomplished with your abilities." I mean,
I don't like that one.
No, when I read it, I thought that sounds like that's stoking up emotions that could put you into a pretty bad state if you feel like you aren't achieving what you should achieve.
So I can understand it in a sporting context because that is about kind of very much about sporting performance. But I think to look at what you've achieved and then forget it and think only about what else you feel you should have achieved with your ability is a horrendous way to look at yourself. It reminds me of something. There's a journalist who writes a column in The Guardian called Oliver Berkman, and he tends to write about psychological concepts, but from a kind of a knowledgeable layman's perspective. And he has a newsletter, and in one of the editions in the past couple of months, he wrote about, I can't remember what the context was, but anyway, whatever it was, he was talking about to-do lists and the way that we kind of hold ourselves to account. We write a big long list of things that we're supposed to do. Then we get to the end of the day and we realize we've only done 2 of them, and then we beat ourselves up. And actually that kind of whole cycle of self-criticism makes it more and more difficult to get things done. And he says that what he does is he starts with no list and he writes down all the things he completes.
Yeah.
So he does something and then he'll write down what he's done, and then he'll do something else and he'll write down the next thing. And it guarantees that at the end of the day, he always has a completed to-do list because he works it the other way round. And I thought that was such a lovely, self-supportive idea.
I think that's very relevant. This guy also went on to say that instead of measuring success in comparison to others, he focused on something that was within his control, which reminded me of the Serenity Prayer. He's sort of alluding to the abilities thing again, but it was something that was inside his control. We can't control others. We can't control how other people are going to behave around us, or how well they're going to do, or how badly they're going to do. So I thought that was, I thought he saved himself a little bit, but I didn't like the way he started out.
Yeah, that does save him a little bit. Yes, that's absolutely right, because I think we do have a tendency to forget about things that are outside of our control and still berate ourselves for our failures, which is ridiculous.
I think also it's quite difficult to look at others and see how they measure success. I mean, if you look at someone like who's that guy? Is it Elon Musk?
Oh yeah,
Elon Musk, isn't it? Yeah, I mean he's outwardly he's sort of outrageously successful with with his status and his money and the projects he gets involved in. But when you read about him, he said it's really hard to measure many of the things that he cares about most, which is his mental and physical health, his relationships, freedom, and fulfillment. Which you can't put a sort of monetary value on that, can you? And he said that's where those areas that he finds difficult to get across to people, because everyone else looks at him and thinks he's got everything he's ever needed, and he really hasn't. So he measures success in a completely different way than someone else looking at him would.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is he's kind of referencing the fact that many of the things that probably a lot of people would say were most important to them are, ironically, the things that are most within our control. Yet they seem to be often the things that we focus the least on.
We do, and it's hard to put a measuring stick against them as well, isn't it? It's if you're looking at someone's bank account, you can see there's something you can measure by. But if you're looking at how fulfilled you are, or how much freedom you have, it's difficult to measure, isn't it?
It is, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying at the start, which is I think we're over obsessed with measurement. We want to measure everything. It's ridiculous. If you get up in the morning and you feel content, and you feel a level of gratitude for having woken up again and getting another day, if that is if that's all you need in order to feel a sense of happiness, then you're pretty likely to experience a lot of happiness. If, however, every day you wake up, you're holding yourself to this list of requirements, I've got to be able to do this, I've got to be able to do that, I've got to achieve that, then, if you're saying without doing those, you're not really going to allow yourself to experience happiness, then you're gonna struggle.
Yeah, you are. You are. It's strange that people come on to the group meetings, and I had someone recently came on and said, 9 months sober today, and 9 months is a massive achievement. So everyone's very supportive and cheering and well done, that's brilliant. And then a couple of days later, someone come on and said, "Oh, I'm only 10 days sober." You know what I mean? But again, it was a massive achievement, but viewed it in a completely different way. Because they felt insignificant against other people that had got a longer term of sobriety. And we always say, and I always say, look, it doesn't really matter how many days. We're all on the same road. We're at slightly different stages on the road. We're all tied together. We're all helping each other along. It doesn't really matter if you're 1 day or 40 years. We're all battling the same demons in the same way, and we're all helping each other along.
But that goes back to what we were talking about before. In that person who came on the call and said, "I'm only 10 days sober," is using external comparison in a negative way. So when you're 10 days sober, there is no point in you comparing yourself with someone who is 9 months sober. It's never going to make you feel okay, is it? That's like being on the pyramid and only looking up.
Yeah.
What you need to be doing if you're 10 days sober is saying, "I'm 10 days sober." If I compare myself with my drinking self, I'm much better off. That's the only, the only comparison that's valuable to you there is, I was drinking and now I'm not drinking, and I haven't been drinking for 10 days. Conversely, it's almost impossible not to feel good about that.
But anyway, there's things. There's always things to be grateful for. So what do you?
Is that where we are?
I was not going to wrap it up. Was
that supposed to be a segue?
It was a gentle segue because often I get to this point and say, "Well, I've come to the end of my days." It almost feels like I'm, being bored about moving on to the next bit, which I'm not. I always.
Well, in a sense, this whole conversation today has been about gratitude, hasn't it?
Because it has.
Because the thing is, when you feel grateful, you don't have to measure, do you?
No, you don't.
Do you want me to tell you what I'm grateful for this week?
Please go.
I feel really grateful this week for the snow, because we've had a pretty consistent week of it, and I've had such fun, enjoyment walking with the dog in the snow, who loves the snow. It's felt a little bit like a holiday, and now it's kind of disappearing, and I'm okay seeing the back of it now, but I really feel like I've made the most of it and had some beautiful walks in the freezing cold, in beautiful countryside, seen some lovely sunrises, and it's been wholly uplifting.
Good on you. Well, that's quite a good addition to anyone's gratitude list, I think. And mine's a little bit more mundane, really.
Well, yeah, I expect it will be. Well, obviously, it won't be snow because you haven't got any bloody shoes that are suitable for walking in it.
It's sort of weather related, all right?
Oh, is it?
Weather related. Well, I was grateful that my car started first time when it was -4 outside. So, little victories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I bet you got a little glow of gratitude, didn't you, there when that happened?
It was relief because I needed to go to the supermarket, and it's a long old walk if it hadn't started. So, yeah I was pleased with that.
What would have been really funny would have been if it had started, you got to the supermarket, done all your shopping, then it wouldn't start. That would have been quite amusing.
That wouldn't have been amusing at all. No, I did have that fear and that panic.
Were you down at Aldi?
No, I was along at Tesco's.
I was going to say, because if you'd been down at Aldi, you could have walked up here, couldn't you? And I could have laughed at you through the window.
You could have done, but that wouldn't have been funny.
I'd have felt grateful that I was in the nice warm and you were outside miserably trying to start your car.
Anyway, so that's that. Unless you've got a guilty music pleasure that you wanted to... Well,
I have actually.
You have? Well done.
Well, I don't know if it's guilty really, but I don't know if you've watched it. I mentioned it a few weeks ago. You know that there's a series on Channel 4 recently called It's a Sin. Have you watched it?
No.
Right. Okay. So anyway, one of the guys who plays the lead, one of the lead characters in that is also in a band called Years and Years. Have you heard of them?
Oh, right. Yeah.
They're very popular with the young people.
I've heard of Years and Years. Yes, but they do still play a bit of Years and Years on radio too from time to time. So
do they? Anyway, they've got a song called King, which is ridiculously catchy. And I was lying in bed the other night and I was listening to some music, and that song came on my playlist. I put it on my playlist. And I found myself, I don't know if you've ever done this. Have you ever danced in bed?
Not in that way.
Yeah, I found myself dancing in bed. And then I spoke to my daughter, and apparently it is a thing.
Is it? What, bed dancing? Is
bed
it?
Dancing, yeah, dancing in bed. Where you kind of listen to something, you think, I wasn't expecting this track to pop up. And it pops up and you just can't prevent yourself from moving, even as you near the stages of slumber.
I haven't experienced that, but I'll try. I've always up for new. I should try.
So I suppose my guilty pleasure is not so much the song, but it's more my admission that I do indulge in some bed dancing.
Bed dancing, yeah. No, well, you've outed yourself now. Do you feel better?
Oh, I didn't feel worried about it beforehand, to be fair.
I'm more worried about, that sort of behaviour. Says it's not right.
You don't need to worry about me.
Anyway,
my
guilty pleasure is a dreadful song. I'll give you a little bit of backstory to it. Well, it's Nobody's Child by Foster and Allen. No, I'll tell you why I've chosen that. Shall I?
Oh God! Foster and Allen always remind me of Tinker's Rucksack on Vic Reeves' Big Night Out.
It's a dreadful song, but it just reminded me. I remember that I used to go to a youth club up over the back field. Actually, there used to be there used to be at the end of Recreation Close. There was a youth
civil
club
service club.
The Civil Service Youth Club.
Yeah.
And so I'd have been sort of 12, 13. And I remember a guy, one of the guys that we used to see up there regularly. He'd just got a spot on. Do you remember Opportunity Knocks?
Yes.
Yeah, which is like the forerunner of the X Factor and that sort of thing many years ago. And he was going on there to do a rendition of Nobody's Child. All right? And he stood up the front there.
Yeah.
It's a very awkward age, isn't it? Sort of 13, 14.
Yeah.
And he did a really nice rendition of it, which he then did on television on Opportunity Knocks.
Oh, so he actually got. Did he? But he got through did he get on the television programme?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah. He's on the telly. So it was good. So it sort of reminded me of that. So it's a dreadful song, but it did remind me of my youth. And this chap, I can't remember his name now, but the chap who had the balls to get up and do that.
Was it Bobby Crush?
He was a piano player, mate.
Oh, yeah. That was the only person I can remember on Opportunity Knocks. Although, I don't know if I've ever told you this, I was in a band once. We went for an audition on Opportunity Knocks.
Did you?
Yeah. We didn't get on. Yeah.
No, they weren't that keen on bands, really, were they?
Not really. I can remember we had to go to this. Well, we went to London to do this audition, and we'd had to create, because you couldn't play live. You had to mime to a backing track. And so we'd recorded this backing track hastily one Sunday afternoon in a mate's shitty little studio somewhere. And if I watched it back now, it would be horribly cringeworthy. But there you go. I could have been on the telly. I think it would have been after the days. I don't think Huey Green was on it anymore. I expect Huey Green had long since died. Who was the compere after Huey Green?
I can't remember. I only really remember Huey Green.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been in your lost years, would it?
No, it wouldn't have been. No.
Anyway,
no. So that's my
opportunity. That's my Opportunity Knock story.
It is, and it didn't really knock in the end, did it?
Opportunity didn't knock for me, but I wasn't that bothered because that's not the way that I measure success.
Okay.
See you later. Cheers.
Bye.
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 Bye. Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us to let us know what you think of the show. And finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.
Even though I'll never need her, even though she's only giving me pain, I'll be on my knees to feed her, spend a day to make her smile again. Even though I'll never need her, even though she's only giving me pain, as the world is soft around her. leaving me with nothing to disdain.